Imagine a war fought in near silence. No roaring crowds, no cheering fans, just the eerie, almost haunting quiet of the open sea. The only sounds are the gentle lapping of waves against the hull of a ship and the distant cries of seabirds. This is not a battlefield of clashing swords or booming cannons, but a vast expanse of water where danger lurks beneath the surface. Just the vast, unforgiving ocean and the constant threat of death lurking beneath the waves. Submarines, the silent predators of the deep, move stealthily, their periscopes barely breaking the surface. The men aboard these vessels live in a world of perpetual tension, knowing that at any moment they could become the hunted. The ocean, with its unpredictable moods, can be both an ally and an enemy, offering concealment one moment and treacherous storms the next. This was the Battle of the Atlantic, the longest continuous military campaign in World War II. It was a relentless struggle that spanned the entire duration of the war, a deadly game of cat and mouse played out over thousands of miles of open ocean. Convoys of merchant ships, laden with vital supplies, became the lifeblood of the Allied war effort, their safe passage essential to the survival of nations. It was a brutal struggle for control of the Atlantic Ocean, a lifeline for the Allied forces in Europe. The stakes could not have been higher. If the Allies could not secure the Atlantic, they would be cut off from the resources and reinforcements needed to sustain their fight against the Axis powers. Every ship that made it through was a victory, every loss a potential disaster. This war within a war raged from the very first day of the conflict in 1939 until Germany's surrender in 1945. For 6 long years, the men of the Allied and Axis navies fought a desperate battle, their fates intertwined with the shifting tides and the whims of fortune. The ocean became a graveyard for countless ships and submarines, their wrecks lying silent on the seabed, a testament to the ferocity of the struggle. It was a war of stealth and cunning, of technological innovation and raw courage. Sonar operators strained to detect the faintest echoes of enemy submarines, while lookouts scanned the horizon for the telltale signs of a periscope or a torpedo wake. Advances in technology, from improved sonar and radar to the development of depth charges and escort carriers, played a crucial role in turning the tide of the battle, and its outcome would determine the fate of the free world. The victory in the Battle of the Atlantic ensured that the Allies could continue to receive the supplies and reinforcements they needed to press on to ultimate victory. It was a triumph of perseverance and ingenuity, of bravery and sacrifice. The men who fought in this silent war may not have had the glory of parades and medals, but their contribution was no less vital. They fought in the shadows, in the depths of the ocean, and their legacy is one of quiet heroism and enduring resolve. The Battle of the Atlantic began just hours after Britain declared war on Germany. German U-boats lurking beneath the waves were unleashed on Allied shipping lanes, their mission to strangle Britain's supply lines and starve her into submission. For 6 long years, the battle raged. Convoys of merchant ships carrying vital supplies braved the treacherous waters. They faced the constant threat of attack from German U-boats, surface raiders, and aircraft. It was a battle of endurance, a test of will as much as a test of military might. On one side stood the Axis powers, led by Nazi Germany. The Axis coalition, driven by a vision of dominance, sought to control the seas and disrupt Allied supply lines. Their strategy was rooted in the belief that cutting off resources would cripple their enemies and bring about a swift victory. Their weapon of choice, the U-boat, a stealthy predator of the deep. These submarines were designed to be silent and deadly, lurking beneath the waves to strike unsuspecting convoys. The U-boats were equipped with torpedoes and mines, making them formidable adversaries in the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. Leading the German U-boat force was Admiral Karl Dönitz, a cunning strategist who believed he could win the war by cutting Britain's lifelines. Dönitz's tactics involved wolf pack attacks, where groups of U-boats would coordinate their assaults on Allied convoys, overwhelming their defenses and causing significant losses. Facing them were the Allies. The Allied forces, composed of multiple nations, understood the critical importance of maintaining open sea routes for supplies and reinforcements. They knew that losing control of the Atlantic would mean losing the war. Great Britain, with its proud naval tradition, bore the brunt of the fighting in the early years. The Royal Navy, with its centuries-old legacy, was tasked with protecting convoys and hunting down U-boats. British sailors faced perilous conditions, from the icy waters of the North Atlantic to the constant threat of enemy attacks. Later, the United States, Canada, and other allied nations joined the fight, pouring resources and manpower into the struggle for the Atlantic. The entry of the United States into the war brought a significant boost in naval power and industrial capacity. American shipyards produced vessels at an unprecedented rate, while Canadian forces played a crucial role in escorting convoys and providing air cover. The Allies developed new tactics and technologies to counter the U-boat threat. Aircraft equipped with radar and depth charges patrolled the skies, while improved sonar systems helped detect submarines lurking below. The coordination between naval and air forces became a key factor in turning the tide of the Battle of the Atlantic. The relentless efforts of the Allied forces ensured that vital supplies continued to reach Europe. Convoys, often escorted by warships and aircraft, braved the treacherous waters to deliver food, weapons, and troops. These supplies were essential for sustaining the war effort and ultimately achieving victory. The Battle of the Atlantic was a grueling and prolonged conflict, but it was a decisive one. The bravery and determination of those who fought in the Atlantic ensured that the Allies could continue their fight against the Axis powers. Today, we remember their sacrifices and honor their legacy, knowing that their efforts were instrumental in shaping the outcome of World War II. The Atlantic Ocean was not just a battlefield, it was a lifeline. During World War II, the vast expanse of the Atlantic became a crucial theater of war, where the control of sea routes determined the fate of nations. The ocean's strategic importance cannot be overstated, as it was the main conduit for the flow of essential supplies and military reinforcements. Britain, an island nation, depended on supplies from across the Atlantic: food, fuel, and raw materials. These supplies were the backbone of the British war effort, ensuring that the nation could continue to fight against the Axis powers. The convoys that crossed the Atlantic were laden with everything from wheat and meat to oil and steel, all of which were vital for both the civilian population and the military. Fuel, raw materials, and food were not the only critical supplies. The Atlantic also served as the main route for transporting troops from the United States and Canada to the European theater. These soldiers were essential for bolstering the Allied forces and providing much-needed manpower for the various fronts, and troops from the United States and Canada. The journey across the Atlantic was fraught with danger, as German U-boats prowled the waters, seeking to disrupt these vital supply lines. The bravery and resilience of the sailors and soldiers who made these crossings cannot be understated. Without these vital supplies, Britain could not hope to resist Nazi aggression. The British government implemented strict rationing to ensure that the available resources were used efficiently. But even with these measures, the nation was heavily reliant on the supplies that came across the Atlantic. The morale of the British people was bolstered by the knowledge that their allies were committed to supporting them. For the Allies, controlling the Atlantic was not just about winning a battle, it was about survival. The naval strategies employed by the Allies, including the use of convoys and escort ships, were crucial in protecting the supply lines from German U-boat attacks. The Battle of the Atlantic was a prolonged and grueling campaign, but it was one that the Allies could not afford to lose. If Germany could cut the sea lanes, Britain could be starved into submission, leaving Europe at the mercy of Hitler's war machine. The German strategy was to use their U-boats to create a blockade, preventing supplies from reaching Britain. This would have forced the British to capitulate, giving the Axis powers a significant advantage in the war, leaving Europe at the mercy of Hitler's war machine. The consequences of a German victory in the Atlantic would have been dire, not just for Britain, but for the entire world. The control of the Atlantic was a pivotal factor in the overall strategy of the war, influencing the outcome of numerous battles and campaigns. The stakes were incredibly high. The Battle of the Atlantic was a testament to the determination and resilience of the Allied forces. It was a battle fought not just with ships and submarines, but with the unwavering spirit of those who believed in the cause of freedom and democracy. The victory in the Atlantic was a turning point in the war, ensuring that the lifeline remained open and that the Allies could continue their fight against tyranny.